Welcome to Valor Latino, a comprehensive look at issues and interests to Milwaukee's Hispanic community on News Talk 1130 WISN. Here's your host, Perfecto Rivera.
Welcome this Sunday morning to the Valor Latino program. I am Perfecto Rivera, your host. My guest and friend with me this Sunday morning is Mr. Dan Steininger. And Dan and I, we go back a ways, just a good relationship. I want to just tell the listener audience, I recently had his son, Clay Steininger, on the show, who is a great guitarist, musician for a group called Dominique Marte, who was headlined at the Summerfest at the Harley-Davidson stage. That was a couple weeks ago. But invited Dan. Dan is the president of BizStart here in Milwaukee. He's also a columnist, writes a column called Innovate or Die. And he's also an advisor to other business leaders under another organization, company of his, Steininger and Associates. But with all that said, Dan Steininger, welcome this Sunday morning to the Valor Latino program.
Good morning, Perfecto, and thanks for doing that interview of my son. He lives in Lawrence, north of Boston, and he's the only gringo in a Latino band that's very, very successful. So, and his Spanish is much better than mine.
Well, you know, just on that note, my wife and I, we went to see him. This is the second time we've gotten the privilege to see Clay Steininger at the Summerfest grounds. And you mentioned the band. You know, he talks about being the only gringo on this band. But he is such an accomplished musician and guitarist in his own right. And that band is growing in popularity, in particular in the Spanish-speaking markets, you know, nationally. And I noticed that there's like 51 videos now of him on the internet. So if they wanted to catch up on Clay Steininger, they can see that. But so we're here now, Dan. BizStarts. Share with our listening audience first a little bit of sort of your own background.
Okay, long before BizStarts, I started my youth as, I always say, I'm a recovering lawyer, and spent about 10 years practicing law, went to law school on the East Coast. Then I became CEO of one of the major life insurance companies in this town, Catholic Knights Life Insurance Company, and also chairman of an equity fund we launched. So I always describe myself not only as a recovering lawyer, but a recovering CEO as well. So ran a successful business for many, many years. I also oversaw the Port of Milwaukee, which is, we have a very viable port here, and I did that as a civic contribution. And primarily because my grandfather was Daniel Hone, who was mayor of the city. We all know the Hone Bridge, named after Granddad. I lived with him when I was young. And one thing he really always conveyed to me is you need to give back to the community you're in. I mean, he a mayor for 24 years, ranked as one of the best mayors in the history of the country. So I learned a lot of that. That's why I gave the years I did for the Port of Milwaukee. And when I jumped out of corporate America, I sort of said, okay, what's the biggest challenge we face right now? And everyone would agree, jobs. We need jobs. And Wisconsin was ranked, and still is ranked 50th in the nation for startups, the source of most jobs. So really the birth of BizStarts, which is almost a decade old now.
Well, I want to just step back a little bit because, you know, as we're moving into BizStarts, I mean, your background, your own history, as you mentioned, you know, you've been an entrepreneur all your life, you know, and so you know the ropes about starting a business, you know the ropes about, you know, having employees, all of that stuff that is so foreign to most people, you know, that's part of you know, your strengths. So as you move, I'll let
your audience in on a little secret. I'm not saying the law profession isn't tough. It is, particularly when you have to be in court and you have judges aren't happy with you or opposing counsel. But when I moved into the world of business as a CEO, I realized that in law, if you were a good lawyer, you increased your billings, you got good relationship with your clients. Once you're running a business, it's a tougher law. First of all, you have to depend on other people. You can't do it by yourself. The market changes. You're faced with forces that are not under your control. I really learned the hard way that business is a much tougher profession than being a lawyer, by far, and that's part of why I eventually started BizStarts, because you have to have a lot of help and advice. But business it's wonderful to start a business, to grow a business, to hire people, but comes with the territory, as you say, learning the ups and downs of hiring the wrong people, the market changes, forces that you can't control. So it's a tough world. And so I learned firsthand what it means to succeed in that world. So
sure. Well, and even prior to that, you're giving back to the community. You mentioned that I think you said you worked for the Peace Corps for a while.
Right. I spent 2 years in Kenya, East Africa, and like Perfecto, who was a teacher himself. I'm not too sure, Perfecto, your challenge in teaching with MPS wasn't even more difficult for me, who was teaching in Kenya, East Africa, up in the bush country of Kenya, East Africa, to students in their third language. In many ways, your challenges were even harder because my students really, really studied. But anyhow, it was 2 years of my life, and I really enjoyed it because these were wonderful, wonderful students. Worked hard, studied hard. It was a great part, but that was sort of like you do something with your life besides just make money. So that's part of what I've always done, and I feel very comfortable with that. You can sleep better at night. So
sure. Well, you mentioned earlier that your grandfather Dan Hone, was the great bridge along the lakefront there, is named after him. And I didn't know that at all until your son Clay mentioned it at his performance at Summerfest when he was performing under the bridge, under the Hone Bridge. Sort of he announced, "Hey, he's coming home," and this is sort of part of his heritage. So,
well, it is true, and I actually lived with Dan Hone when I was young. I was not smart enough to ask good questions, but one of the things he did, and I think this is always interesting, he was a socialist. Which would make him a conservative Democrat today. But among other things, aside from running a great city that won every award for a well-run city, great health of the citizens, great education, they called him the sewer socialist because our sewers actually worked. But one of the things that always impressed me is that he was responsible for creating Lincoln Memorial Drive. And the reason he did it is because he called them the capitalists, owned the lakefront. Well, the citizens didn't have access to their own lakefront here. And he got them to donate their land to the city, and that's how Lincoln Memorial Drive was created and our beaches. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had access to our lakefront. So that's always, and it was great when I headed up the Harbor Commission because our land included Summerfest all the way up to the Calatrava. So I made sure that land and all that was developed in a way now that it's a spectacular lakefront. So
wow,
that was a good part of
that, all this great new information. I mean, that really has to be something, a sense of pride. I mean, if it was me, I'm driving down that bridge now or down that Lincoln Memorial. Now I can have a connection here. I know a friend of mine, Dan, whose grandfather helped to create all this that I now, as a citizen of Milwaukee, get to enjoy.
You get to enjoy, and the beauty is that everything from the lease with Summerfest, which was a battle in itself, the creation of Discovery World, which was also another lease and a battle, then was Pieces of Eight, now a whole different restaurant, and then the Calatrava itself. All those leases I signed, and I have the scars on my all over from all of the battles we did to preserve that lakefront for the public and for the average citizen. So anyone uses Milwaukee's lakefront, I take great pride because Dan Hone would be very happy that you have access to the lakefront. It's your lake. It's open to the public. The people by right have a right to use that, and they do. So we have a wonderful lakefront. So thank you, Dan Hone, and the legacy he left me. So.
Well, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dan Steininger, for all that you've done also to preserve that and sort of grow it for all of us. So you mentioned some of the icons there now, the Calatrava Museum, which we love. My wife and I love to go there. We get our yearly membership passes for that and Discovery World. When family are in town, we say, hey, let's go down there and see, what Milwaukee has to offer. But now it has a whole different meaning of all of that now for me also. So thank you. So great. Okay, so Dan, okay, now your entrepreneurial spirit after, as you said, recovering as an attorney, you moved into the business world. Hired employees, started your own business, and really grew some fantastic businesses in your history. Tell us a little bit about those ropes there.
Well, of course, in running and growing a business, particularly in that time, it was very challenging. Is how do you compete in a very tough world? I realized that there's competitors out there are trying to put you out of business. I started the Catholic Equity Fund, which was an investment fund for equities. And one I really take pride in, this goes back to the early 2000s, our niche was more than anything, we invested in a lot of stocks, but if we felt a company, the CEO was making too much pay, we would file shareholder resolutions asking the board of directors to rethink what they're doing. Why are these guys getting paid these kind of bonuses? And I would go to the shareholder meetings and speak up. In fact, the first one I did was Alcoa, when I finished saying that, you're taking out 40 or 50 million a year, which is about, 500 times what your average worker makes. this doesn't make any sense. You could have heard a pin drop. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be like Lee Harvey Oswald. Someone's going to shoot me. After it was over, one of the photographers, I went up to him and I said, look, can I have a picture of this? We'll put it in our newsletter. And he said, well, I work for Alcoa. So and then he said, but wait a second. I'll do it for you free. And I'll tell you why. When you finished your speech, everyone in this room wanted to applaud you, but they couldn't because the CEO is up there. And another one was Art Fold. He was the CEO of Lehman Brothers in 2004, 2005. I appeared at his shareholder meeting. He was taking out $80 million. And I remember telling him, I said, Mr. Fold, okay, look, you're taking out $80 million. It isn't the $80 million you're going to make this year. It's the fact that you're creating a breach of trust between yourself and your employees. You're making in an hour what they make in a year practically. I said, that's not going to be good for Lehman Brothers. And he said the typical, well, they benchmark my salaries to others. And I thought, yeah, and you paid for the benchmarking firm. What if he'd have just said, Mr. Steininger, and I said, look, I'm president of Wisconsin, President's Organization. I'm not some hayseed from the Midwest. I know what I'm talking about. What if he just said, okay, you got a point. I'm going to cut my bonus in half. I'll only take $40 million. I'll put $40 million in a gain sharing program for all our employees, right? What if he'd have done that? But instead he didn't. And what happened? 3 years later, Lehman Brothers was gone. 85,000 employees worldwide, mainly Americans, lost their jobs. His net worth got beaten up bad. And to finish it off, one of the employees in his company punched him in the stomach when he was working out in the gym. So, I'm very proud of the fact that when you run a company, you have to recognize the people who are the reason, and you know that, Perfecto, because you ran your own business. The people who deliver the services every day, they're the people who make or break. I always told my employees, look, I'm running a large institution, a life company. The people who judge this organization, they're never going to meet me for the most part. They're going to meet the receptionist. That receptionist is going to talk to more customers than I ever will. So I ran businesses based around the fact that the average person is going to make or break this company. And so it was fun. It was a great run of it. But then when I looked around Milwaukee and this region, when you're almost last in the nation in startups, which is the source of most jobs, we had a problem and nobody was addressing it. So all the people who want to start businesses, where do they go for help? There was nowhere for them to go. So when we started BizStarts, we were a leader and saying we're going to create an organization that doesn't cost anybody any money, but they can go to get help in starting a business. Should they start a business, or is this the dream? Can you get connections? Can you get mentoring, advice? So anybody and anyone who wants to start a business, no matter who you are, what your background is, we're there to help you. And you're going to get help from real professionals who care about new companies, because you're the future of this city and this community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and they're getting this advice, as I understand, it's free advice.
Precisely. We're a 501c3.
501c3.
Great board of directors.
And the critical piece for me is that this advice is coming from people that have sort of been successful, have
business.
In business, they've lived and sometimes died, that business, going through the hardships, I should say, of recognizing. So this advice that they're getting are for people that can really understand them, help them through the pitfalls, the ups and downs.
Precisely. For example, if they come to BizStarts for help, it's sort of like going to the doctor. You're going to have a primary care physician that cares about you. Why primary care physician is known? His name is Brett Hofwassen. He's come up through the School of Hard Knocks. He's run businesses. He understands it. So you get your own primary care physician. I call him the entrepreneur doctor, who will help you. He will listen to you, try to understand your problems, and try to figure out what do you need to succeed.
Absolutely.
And then connect you to those resources you need to succeed.
Well, Dan, we need to take a quick break. I want to come back to how you phrased that, having your own sort of primary physician, business physician. But first, our break. This is the Valor Latino program coming to you via News Talk 1130 WISN.
Now more of Valor Latino with Perfecto Rivera on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Welcome back this Sunday morning to the Valor Latino program. I'm Perfecto Rivera, your host. My guest and friend with me this Sunday morning is Mr. Dan Steininger, president of BizStarts, columnist, writes a column called Innovate or Die, and he's an advisor to a number of other business leaders under Steininger and Associates. But with that said, Dan Steininger, welcome back.
Thank you, Senior Perfecto.
Well, thank you. Well, Dan, you phrased something really interesting for me about what BizStarts does. You mentioned that coming there, people that are wanting to start a business, they meet with, as you put it, that primary physician for a guy that wants to get into business.
I call him the entrepreneur doctor.
There you
Brent
go.
Hoffwasson. But he can connect. What he'll do is connect you to mentors, people who are seasoned persons, business people who've run businesses of their own. And you can get 2 to 3 hours a week, could be as much as that or more, of someone you can talk to continually share your problems, your concerns, things that go right or go wrong. He can connect you to resources. One such resource is Tim Scythe. Tim has got his own little operation on the South Side, primarily Latino tenants. If you need a business, you need a place to rent, $50 a month. He's got space available for you.
Wow.
So isn't that great? And all the services and help you need. So he can connect you to the resources. Let's say you think you need some legal advice or accounting advice or whatever, marketing advice. We have partners in all those fields that are willing to give you, whoever, it's a perfecto, if you're starting a business, I would need to talk to a lawyer. Well, we can get you into a lawyer. It won't cost you anything. They'll give you a half hour, 45 minutes of their time just to answer some basic questions because they all care about getting businesses started. So you get connections to really credible law firms, accounting firms, a whole list of services you might need that would normally cost you an arm and a leg, but they're partners with us. And so they're willing to give the entrepreneur some time. So it's really, like a one-stop shop for absolutely everything you need to grow your business.
And I want to specify that you mentioned the Latino business startups. It just so happens that more Latino and Latina businesses startups are happening around the country, and certainly Milwaukee is part of that in Wisconsin, than other businesses. So, with the concept of our show, Valor Latino, I want to specify now, what you do is not specific to Hispanic-owned businesses because you serve everybody in the community, regardless. But the fact that, you're here, there's a lot of Latino and Latina businesses that are going to be interested in the kind of support that you have.
You're absolutely perfect. We serve everybody, regardless of race, color, creed, gender. It doesn't make any difference. But one thing the Latino community shares is that they're primarily immigrant population. Well, why do they start so many businesses? You go throughout the world, it is the immigrant populations that are the leaders, because anybody who took the time, the effort, the courage to leave their home country and move to another country, you're talking about someone who's willing to take a risk and gets it about, and that's what business is about, hard work and taking a risk. And so that's why you see Latino, surpassing everybody in terms of startup businesses, because by nature, they have learned to take risks to move to another country, and they're willing to work hard and grow businesses. But they need connections like anyone else to people who are, I call it the old boy network, but
sure.
Frankly, how are they ever going to get to the old boy network? The people who have the connections, the money, and that's what we have. We have that network that will, our director of operations, Elizabeth Lumberg, she's really works with the sponsors and the companies and the network we have that will help these entrepreneurs. She keeps them happy, involved, and she's terrific. And I think they appreciate the feedback. So we give them connections to people they would never get to see. We have, for example, another thing. We've all heard about Shark Tank. Well, we've all watched it. Well, we have what we call the pitch forum. It's where you can go and pitch your business and get feedback from business leaders. And we're nice. We're friendly. We're not Shark Tank. I like to call us the walleye tank.
Okay.
Because we give you friendly, helpful advice on your business. That's another opportunity from really smart people who really know and can connect you to things that might help you. I think the other thing is with the media, we have great relationships with the various newspapers in town, the media outlets who like to talk about startups. So if you end up having a business that's starting to get some traction and doing some, we can get a story about you. And why is that important? Because it gets your name in front of the public. It's zero cost advertising. That's another advantage to working with BizStarts. We have a great website. So you're in the middle of the night, you get up, I want to know about this, I want to know that. We'll go to our website, and you can go to our resources, and just about anything you ever want to know, including a test on whether you should be an entrepreneur, is on that website.
I think that's a critical piece.
It is, actually, and part of what we do is giving tough love. We'll have people who come in, I've got this dream, I'm going to make this the first square circle in manufacturing. Well, we may have to say, look, is there a market for that? And maybe not. And more importantly, you may be a great salesperson.
And is this the market?
Is this the market? And help you there and finding if you have a market or the right people involved. And it is tough love. I mean, sometimes it's telling people, look, don't quit your day job. Because you're going to end up mortgaging your house and you may end up getting divorced because you love your ideas so much, but it may not be, it's your dream, but it may not be a business that's going to make it. So we want to give them the honest feedback they need to decide, should I take the risk of starting this business?
Well, and you and I have all, through our history, we've met people that have great ideas, and they're good salesmen or good saleswomen or whatever, what they're doing as for their livelihood right now, they're good at. But it's a whole different ballgame when now you're managing a business and you're now managing, a staff of people that may think differently than you, want to do things differently. And how do you corral that and manage that and then keep up with the finances of meeting payroll, meeting the obligations, providing health care, all of that stuff. So,
and even the brainiacs that come to us who have invented brilliant technology, whether it's in water or energy, these are some of our professors, researchers. They have created truly disruptive technology that changes the world as we know it. And they think they have accomplished a new business. They said, no, you've achieved one thing. You got to the top of a mountain. You created great technology. There's another mountain you have to go up. What's that? It says it's getting customers. It's finding salespeople. Right. It's managing human beings, which is never easy. Oh, I didn't realize that. And they have no idea that just having a great idea or even a patented technology does not translate into the ability to run a business. So that's where we're there to help them up that second mountain.
Comes in.
Exactly. That's where we come in. We're not here to help you invent your new great idea, but we're here to help you get up the second mountain, which is becoming a real business. And we're seeing everything. We've seen people who've created pizza places and a new organic pizza. We've had 2 former Brewers players create a new kind of glove that protects that player's hands that fits inside of a glove. We've had people who've done disruptive technology, created Gearbox Express, reconditions these gearboxes that are out on the farms, these you see these windmills way up there. Well, those are run by generators. We help them. We've got all these businesses we've helped. Many were just dreams at the time that have now become reality. Small restaurants, hair salons. The CFO of Harley-Davidson on our board, we have a great board of directors. And I always think Harley's great. They pay great wages, and they got about 1,700 employees in this region. Does anyone know how many hairdressers we have? It goes into the thousands. Those were our family supporting jobs. We call them Main Street businesses. Where do they go for help? And they don't get a lot of attention. They're saying, oh, well, those are mom and pop operations. The vast majority of people in the United States are employed by the mom and pop operations, family businesses. Where do they go for help? So we've always been a leader in helping those kind of companies and those entrepreneurs who want to start their own little family business. But now we're been a leader for they can come to us for help. And I'm very proud of that. And we have people break down in tears. They're so happy they have someone to talk to.
Somebody with expertise that can support them.
Precisely. And many times their spouses are the most happy because they're afraid this guy's going to go bankrupt on us. He's got a good job. He wants to quit and go be an entrepreneur. Yeah. Really,
But you mentioned those baseball players that invented the glove. Mm-hmm. I think I had them on the show here.
Really?
Jaramillo brothers?
Yeah, Jaramillo, right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
they were on my show. We didn't talk so much about that invention. We highlighted a little bit, but more about how they are business leaders, in their own right and what they're doing. So besides playing baseball, what they've done with their lives since then, sort of.
Yeah, really fascinating.
So you meet all kinds of people through what you're doing,
The one thing about America that makes it so unique is that whether we like it or not, the business of America is business. If you can offer a product or service in your startup business, in your company, people don't care what nationality you are. They don't care if you're an immigrant. They don't care where you came from. They don't care what color you are. If you have something they're willing to pay for, and you pay for you take care of those customers, you're there. You're there. You are made it in America, and there is no better way to realize the American dream is to do it yourself. So we're there to help you on that journey because I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It is hard to run a business. I don't care if it's a barbershop, a hair salon, a small restaurant. It is not easy. And Perfecto, you know, because you were a successful businessman yourself for many, many years.
It was a tough road, that's for sure.
It's a tough road. And as you realized early on that, you know, you're working an amazing number of hours. Everyone says, "Oh, I'm going to work for myself." Oh, yeah. Well, when you work for yourself, you have one of the toughest bosses you'll ever have.
You put in 60, 80, 100. The hours are just incredible. That, you know, especially in that startup area, and so.
But if you love what you're doing and you love the work, then the time flies. And you're building a little empire for yourself.
It can be a dream come true. So that's where Dan Steininger and your organization, BizStarts, can really be a leg up for folks. You know,
and folks can go right to the internet and just type in www.bizstarts.com, and you can actually just press the button, begin BizStarts, and they'll ask you some questions. Fill them in, and you're automatically in the line, and you get to see Brent, our entrepreneur director. And here's a gentleman who just has had a very successful run in business. Before that, he was head of community warehouse. So I think, you know, you're going to be connected to some really, really talented people who care about you at a price you can easily afford, which is zero.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, we're coming to the close of our show here. So people that want to reach out to you, they can find you. I found you easily just going to the internet, BizStarts Milwaukee, and it all came up.
BizStarts. You don't even need the walkie. Just BizStarts. Right. That's it. www.bizstarts. And you're in, and you'll see the website and how to engage and how to get connected. Or you can call us if you want and make an appointment. But we'd love to have you down. Our office is in Schlitz Park, so we're centrally located. And by the way, one quick about our offices. Schlitz Park. Schlitz was one of the greatest breweries in the world. In fact, the largest in the world in the 50s. Guess what? It's gone, but there are more people employed in Schlitz Park today than when the brewery was at its height in the 50s.
Absolutely.
So there's a way to end it.
Okay.
That's called entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, Perfecto. It's wonderful.
Dan, my pleasure. Ask our listening audience to join us the following Sunday. This is the Valor Latino program coming to you via News Talk 1130 WISN. 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 WISN.